Hi everyone, my name's Alison and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator, and welcome to part one of two videos where I'll be showing you how to make this lovely stationery box. And this will fit C6 size envelopes, so I have UK standard size cards, and when you open this up you have this gorgeous little stationery set where we've got greeting cards and envelopes. I've made some little note cards. These just sort of say hello there, a little note, etc. And I've just used the In Good Taste DSP. I've used several stamp sets. And then I've made some little tags here as well. And we've even made a little notepad and the notes paper inside, and a little stamp pocket, and then a pen holder as well, so the pen doesn't fly about. And so part one, I shall be showing you, I'll take these out, I shall just be showing you how to make this holder of the cards and the note cards, because it's going to be quite a long video, and I was going to show you the cards as well at the same time, but the video was just going to be far too long. So yeah, the first part will just be this bit, and then I shall upload the tutorial with all the cards that I make and note cards and tags in the next few days. Okay, so let's get started. So for my next box I'm going to use the Forever Greenery paper because I think it's quite universal. I should be able to make some male cards as well as female cards, which is always a good thing. And for the base I'm going to be using soft sea foam, as I've found that goes quite well with most of the colours. I was going to use Just Jade, but because that's quite a bluey colour, I found it only went with the bluey shades, whereas this seems to go with all of them, so it'll give me more options when I decide what designer series paper I'm going to use. So we'll go through the measurements first of the cardstock. This will all be in soft sea foam. So for the main base itself, which if I show you is this whole section here, you'll need 12 by 12 inch cardstock. Okay, and then let's move that out of the way. Okay, then for our lid you're going to need a piece that is 10 7/8 of an inch by 6 3/8 inches. I will put the measurements down below. Then for our large pocket, which is where we have all our greeting cards, it's this pocket. Let's move these out of the way. This pocket here. Okay, so for the large pockets you'll need a piece that is 8 3 inches by 4 inches. For our medium pocket, which is this one here where we've got the note cards, you'll need a piece that is 5.5 inches by 2.5 inches. Then for our smaller pocket here, you will need a piece that is 4 7/8 of an inch by 2.5 inches. And then for our notepad, you will need a piece that is 8 1/4 by 3.5 inches. And then for our stamp pocket, which is obviously this bit here, you'll need a piece that is 2 3/4 inches by 2 inches. Okay, so we'll now plot this away. And we're going to want our 12-inch piece, our 12 by 12. And you're going to want a scoreboard or your trimmer. Okay, so with our 12 by 12 piece, we're first of all going to want to line up our cardstock at the 3/4 of an inch mark that's on the right hand side. And we want to score all the way from the top to the bottom. Then move it along and score at 2 3/4. And again score. Okay, you then want to rotate that 180 degrees. Line that up at 3/4 of an inch again on the right hand side. And score. Move it over, line up at 2 3/4 inches again, and score. And then you want to rotate it so our score lines are top and bottom, and you want to line up at 5 inches and score. Rotate 180 degrees, line up at 5 inches and score again. Okay, so you should now have, a bit difficult to see actually, oh yeah, I can just make that out. And you should have your 2 lines top and bottom and then 2 going through the middle. Okay, you then want to rotate it again so that the score lines that are in the middle are now horizontal, and you want to line up your cardstock at 1 3/4. We're not going to cut or score. What we want to do now is, if you grab a pencil and just where you've got your groove where the cutter or the scorer goes into, that little groove, just do a little pencil mark, just so we've got just a little mark like that. Okay, so that was at 1 3/4. Then line up at 10 1/4 and just do a little mark again. Okay, and then we'll just move that to one side for now, and we'll do the scoring on our other pieces. So if you have your lid, and this is nice and simple, you just want to line up at 2 1/8 and score at 2 1/8 on all 4 sides. Okay, so you should have something that looks like that. And then grab your large pocket piece, and for this you want to score on 3 sides only. So we want to have a long side at the top, and we want to line up at 1 inch. I find it easier to do it on the right hand side. So 1 inch, then rotate. So we're scoring 1 inch on one of the long sides, rotate again, and finally score our last one on the short side. Okay, so that's 3 sides only, like that. So we then want our medium pocket. And this one's done a bit differently, so we'll still only be scoring on the 3 sides, but for this one you want to line it up at 1/2 inch and score, and then move it along to 1 inch and score. So then you'll have 2 score lines on that side. And then rotate and line up at 1/2 inch, and you just do that 1 score line on the base there, rotate and then line up to 1/2 inch and score, and then move it along to 1 inch and score again. Okay, so then you'll have 2 score lines on either side and 1 running along the bottom. Okay, and then we want to do the same again on our small pocket. So again, 1/2 inch, move over to 1 inch, rotate 1/2 inch, rotate 1/2 inch and 1 inch. Okay, and then for our notepad we want to line up at 4 inches, rotate it 180 degrees and line up at 4 inches again. And that gives us a little 1/4 inch gap there. You see that? Just. And then for our little stamp pocket, again we'll be excuse me, scoring on 3 sides. Okay, so this we're just going to line up at 1/8 inch, so a tiny little fold we'll have there, and then 1/8 inch again, and then 1/8 inch again. So again only on the 3 sides. Okay. So if we now bring back our 12 by 12 piece, we've just got some cutting to do, which I'll find it best to do it on the trimmer. So if you have a look where you've got your centre lines and our vertical lines, we have a little square here which we need to cut out. So we've got one here and we've got one on the other side. Okay, so we need to rotate that. We need to line up our card at the 5" again, because that's where our crease was, our score line, and with our cutter up the top, because we're only going to be cutting down to the second score line, so we don't want to put this down while our blade's down the bottom there. So close that down and cut that bit, and so we want to bring our cutter down and to this second score line, which should be the 2 3/4 inches. So I'm going to lift my trimmer up so I can see. So slide it down to the 2 3/4 inch. Keep it in place so it doesn't move. Lift up the arm, come down to the bottom. Try and show you. Just moved a bit there. And you can just check that your score line is within the groove of the trimmer. And you want to push the cutter up again to the second score line, which should be 9 1/4. So bring that up to 9 1/4. Okay. We should have something that looks like that. And then we want to rotate and line up at the 5" mark again. Move our cutter to the top, and again bring it down to the second score line, which is 2 3/4. And lift up the arm. Check that that score line is within the groove. Bring the cutter down and then push up to 9 1/4. Okay, and then lift up. And then what we want to do is rotate it, because we now need to cut off these bits that we've just made. So if we line up, you can either line up the score line, which will make this at 9 1/4 on this side. Let me just show you there. So line up to 9 1/4, which should show your score line being in the groove, and we just want to cut out in between the cuts that we've just made. So remember to push your blade up, and then push up to the cut, which is 5 inches, and then come down. Whoops, I've just moved. Let's push that up again. And then come down, holding it firmly to the 7 inches. And hopefully, when we lift that up, this should just come out. Okay, so then we want to rotate it and do the same again. So line up to the 9 1/4 mark on that side. Again, just checking our score line is in our groove. Push the blade up to the middle, and then push it up to the 5 inch mark, and then bring it down to the 7 inch mark. So he's pushing slightly, and then that should just come away. Okay, So then we're left with that. And if you then locate where your little pencil marks are that we made earlier, we need to just line up our first one in the groove of our trimmer. Okay, can you see that? And we're just then going to cut this section out only. You don't want to cut down here, so it's just the top section. So move our cutter up, the blade, and then trim that piece off. So you're left with that. Okay, and then move it along, line up the second pencil mark, and again just remember to just cut that top piece only, and then we're left with that. Right, so now we're ready to burnish our score lines, and I think it's going to be easier to just show each section as we go, so we'll fold each section as we go. So we need to fold our side pieces there. Right, so now we've done our burnishing, you want to turn it over so we've got the mounting folds on the top. This is our outside of our box, and I'm going to be using this design. Now you'll notice that this is directional, so you have like vertical, or you can have it that way. I think I'm going to do mine vertical. So you'll need to make sure when you're cutting your pieces that your paper is going to be the right way. So if you decide to do, so like on this side, you'll notice there's an up. You know, this can only go this way. So when you're going to put your piece on like that, you want to make sure that when you're putting your piece down here, that your cardstock is going to be facing, your DSP is facing the right way. Because if you put it all on like that, when this then folds up, you'll notice that's going to be upside down. So just be mindful, if you're using a directional paper, that you are actually adhering it on the right way. Okay? So I'm going to be doing mine this way, and the measurements for your mats this way is, if I want mine, so I'm going to have mine upright, so I want to rotate it, and then I want to do a first cut of 4 7/8, and then what this will do is I'll be able to rotate it again and then cut each measurement that I need for each piece. So I'm only having to cut the 4 7/8 once. Does that make sense? If I just quickly cut it now and then I can show you. Okay, so I've rotated it, I cut 4 7/8 of an inch, so when I bring it back round I know that I can do my first measurement, my second measurement, and I haven't got to keep measuring the 4 7/8. So what you're going to need a piece of DSP that, as I've said, is 4 7/8. Then you want to cut one that is 5/8 of an inch, then 1 7/8 of an inch. You then want a piece that is 6 3/8 of an inch, 1 7/8 of an inch, and then 5/8 of an inch. Okay, so if you cut those and yeah, just adhere them all to this part here. Okay. Right, so that's those bits stuck down. We then want to rotate, and we want to put our DSP on this section here, and again we need to make sure that our DSP is the right way round. And the measurements for this are 1 inch on here, 6 3/8, and sorry, that's not 1 inch, that's 7/8 of an inch, 6 3/8 of an inch, 7/8 of an inch, and again from top to bottom it's 4 7/8. Okay, so we'll do that bit and then we'll look at doing this piece, which in fact we can do at the same time. This piece here is also 6 3/8 by 1 7/8. Okay, so if you go ahead and stick those down. Right, so that's all our outside done, and you don't have to put DSP on the bottom, but I just find that it just gives it a bit more stability, because that's where all the weight is as well. Right, so we now need to turn it over, and we're now going to decorate inside, and the measurements are going to be exactly the same, so I will remind you what they are. And I'm going to be decorating mine with this design. I do quite like that actually, and again it is directional, so I'll make sure that my foliage is facing the right way. So I'll give you the measurements again, and we need to obviously stick all the pieces in, but what I want to show you is when you come to do this piece here, which is the shorter side, don't stick these on yet. We'll be sticking those on at a later point. If I show you on here, what I've done is if you stick them in, can you see that? If you stick them in afterwards, then you won't see the join, where it'll make sense when we put it together. It's not the end of the world if you forget, so don't worry if you've forgotten and you have stuck it down. But yes, so I'll go through the measurements that you're going to need again. So the height is 4 7/8. Then you're going to want a piece that is 5/8 of an inch, 1 7/8 of an inch, 6 3/8 of an inch, 1 7/8 of an inch, 5/8 of an inch. Then for this part you're going to need a piece that is 7/8 of an inch, 6 3/8 of an inch, 7/8 of an inch, and again the height is 4 7/8. And then for this piece here is 6 3/8 of an inch by 1 7/8 of an inch. Okay, so if you go ahead and cut those, stick it all down, but just remember, don't stick these two parts on here. Okay? Right, okay, so that's our inside decorated, and you'll notice I've not stuck these two pieces down. Okay, so we will be putting them on later, so we'll just move them to one side. Right, that can go out of the way for the moment. We now need to work on our large pocket. And so what we need to do first is grab some scissors, and where our score lines cross, on each corner we just want to cut these little squares out. And so just follow the score line. You want to try and cut the score line away. Okay, like that. And then do the same on the other side. Like that. Okay. And then we need to fold our score lines. And then what we want to do is put our DSP that we're going to put on the front there. I'm going to be using this lovely stripe one, and I want my lines to be running horizontal. So I'm going to turn it round this way first, and then I'm going to cut down 2 7/8 of an inch, and then across is 6 1/4 inches. So if you cut that piece, stick that down, and then we'll do the next bit. Okay, that's our DSP stuck down. Now what we need to do is we want to put some double-sided tape on all of these 3 flaps. You want to have quite a strong tape, and let's see if I can get that to start. So you want to go as close to the crease line as you can without overlapping it. And then pop another piece underneath. I think this tape is about 1/2 inch just under, so you can just get 2 pieces on. And I'm going to use a bung folder just to get rid of any air bubbles. See something caught under there, but that's okay. And then just repeat on these 2 sides. Right, so now we've got that. If we bring our base over, this is going to go on this shorter part here, so just check that everything fits nicely. Okay, no reason why it shouldn't. So first of all then, we want to take off the 2 strips on the longest flap at the bottom. Those because they stick everywhere. And I also like to apply liquid glue. I just find it helps if you've got that bit of manoeuvrability. Okay, so to put this on, lift up your base, and you want to basically push this bottom flap into the crease of the base whilst making sure that it's in the middle. And this is why I like to apply the glue, because you can put it in and just move it a bit till it's where you want it. And when you're happy, just push down, check that your flap still lifts up, and you'll find that it will sort of stop at where you've just positioned this piece. But as long as it stops and it's upright, then that's fine. And just firmly push that down, folding it over. and checking that that's firmly in place. Okay, and then on one of your sides, if you take off the tape again, and we want to apply some liquid glue again. And bring that up, bring your back up and just line up the side, checking that it's touching the bottom, and just bring that up so that it sits in the crease on the side, and then bring the flap round, checking that it's flush on the edge there. Okay, and because we've added the glue, you do have some wiggle room. That's the word I was looking for earlier. Okay, and then just press firmly with your finger, or you can use your bone folder. And just checking that's not moved. Checking everything is stuck down firmly. Like that. Okay, and then we'll do the same on the other side. Down. And then apply glue again. And again, just fold the flap in, check it's touching the bottom, push it into the crease and bring the flap round, ensuring that it's see, if that was, if I didn't have the glue on, then that wouldn't have come unstuck and it wouldn't have been straight, so definitely advise using glue. Okay, so that's our large pocket, and so now we can put in these two pieces, which you'll put on top of that, and then that way you don't see this here, especially when you've got a darker DSP. You'd have had the darker green at the top and that lighter at the bottom, and it just would have been, I don't think it would have looked as nice, whereas that way that's going to cover it. Okay, so if you go ahead and stick your two edge pieces on. Right, so we've now stuck our pieces in there, which just gives that a nice finish. So now we need to grab our small and our medium pocket, and firstly, if you have a look where we've got the two score lines and we've got these two little squares, can you see that? Not really. The two little squares in the corner there, that's it, you can see that now, and then on this side we need to cut those out, and we'll also do the same on the small pocket as well. And again, you just want to cut the whole of the score line out. And then the same on the other side. Okay, and then we'll do the same again for our small pocket. And then we want to fold and burnish our score lines. On both pieces. Okay, so then what we need to do is apply some red tape. So first of all, with your medium pocket, we want to apply red tape onto our bottom flap, and this should just fit on there. Just rub that over, and then we'll need to apply, just check I'm getting that right for you, yeah, so we need to apply tape on this outside flap only. And then we want to apply tape to both of these two pieces on the right hand side. Okay, and then we'll just use our bone folder to get rid of any air bubbles. Okay, and then with our small pocket, we need one piece on the outside flap, almost running out of this tape. We then want a piece on the bottom flap, and then we want a piece on the outside there. For that bit, I'll be putting some glue on there, so that'll be okay. Right, so now what we need to do is that's how that's going to fit on our box, like that. But we need to stick our medium and our small pocket together, and so that they'll go together like that. Okay, so we need to remove the tape that's nearest our front panel. Okay, and again we will apply some glue. And then fold the two pieces here, fold them completely back, and then line up against your medium pocket so that the bottom flaps line up and the top lines up. Open it out. And those two will pull apart. Okay, and then we should have that. So then what we'll do is we need to mat our pieces before we stick them to our base. So I shall be using my stripy paper again. I've got a piece here. I won't quite cover it all. But for the mats for this, you're going to need a piece that is 1 7/8 high. Okay, that's for both. Then you'll want a piece that is 3/8 of an inch, then 3 3/8, 2 3/4, 3/8 of an inch. Okay, so we'll do that for now, and then we will need to do some more, but I'll show you that bit after we've stuck these on. Okay, so if you go ahead, cut your DSP and stick that onto here. Right, so that's our pieces stuck on the front. Now if we turn it over, we're now going to want to put pieces on these end flaps there and also on this end flap here and on that end flap there. And what that's going to do is when we stick it to our box, it's just going to hide this green so it's not quite so obvious. It will blend in. We're going to cover it in the DSP so that it blends into the background on here of what we've already got. So in your same DSP you want 4 pieces, and this time you want them cut at 2 inches and 1/2 inch. So you'll find it's the exact same size as this piece, and when we stick them on it will slightly overhang. Perhaps even just do it slightly less than 2 inches, but you don't want to do it at 1 7/8 because that might just be too small. But you want to line it up at the top and line it up on our crease there. Okay, so that you'll just want to try and cover as much of this as you can. Okay, so that's 4 pieces, 2 inches by 1/2 inch in your DSP. So that's our 4 pieces put on. Okay, now to stick it to our base. So it's done pretty similar to our larger pocket. So first of all we want to let me just see if that will, yes. So if we take off our tape that's on our 2 bottom flaps, and again we want to apply some glue. And what we want to do is, our flaps are obviously, we've got a gap in the centre there, so we just need to check that that's not being sprayed out or anything. You just need to keep it close together, push it up to the existing pocket, checking it's in the middle, and then when you're happy just push down. Like that. Just lift up, check it all looks okay at the front, which it does. Okay. Okay, so that's like that. Then what we're going to do is take off the 2 pieces of tape from our centre part. Be careful that you don't let them come together. And again we'll apply some glue. And so this is where you now look at where you've got your line, your centre line where your flaps are. You want to try and get this piece also centre with that centre line if you can. So it's a case of just lifting it up, looking above it as you're bringing it up, pushing down at the same time so that it's coming to the bottom, and just checking that that's straight. And then when you're happy, just squeeze those into place. Again, you can go in with your bone folder. In fact, I've sort of put one underneath and one on top. It's a bit fiddly. Okay, and then we want to do our flap on the side. Take that out of the way, put some glue on. And then fold the flap round and push it into place before pushing back. Sorry, I have my head in the camera then. And then when you've got it lined up, then push back. And again, you just want to make sure that this part here is flush. Okay, you'll see what I mean now. I did try and cut the DSP so it matched, but obviously my maths wasn't very good, so that didn't work. But it still looks better, I think, than having the green there. And so then we'll come to this side. And again, you lift up, bring the flap around, make sure it's down to the bottom, and when you're happy, bring it together. Again, checking it's flush down there. Okay, and there's our pockets. That is the hardest part to me of this box. Okay, so now what we're going to do is work on our notepad, and we're going to make the the sheets themselves that are going to go in the notepad. So what you want to do with your copy paper, I'm going to use a better quality copy paper. So this is about 90 GSM, and about 4 sheets of this should give you enough note paper. And the sheet size that you want is 3 3/4 inches high by 3 1/4 inch wide. And so when you've cut 4 sheets, you get a nice little bundle of notepaper. And you don't really want to go, so we haven't folded our notepad yet, but the gap here, which will be the back of our notepad, is 1/4 inch. Yeah, that is 1/4 inch, isn't it? Yeah. So you don't want your paper pack to be larger than that. Okay, so once you've got that, let's move that out of the way. You want a piece of thin scrap paper, and you want a rubber cement, which we're going to apply to the top of our paper pack here. It's very gooey. Just check all your paper is lined up. Okay, and just put some on there, ensuring it's all nicely coated. Don't worry about getting on the top page, we can always remove it. Okay, and then scrape off the excess. You can get this cement freely, I think. I think I got mine off of eBay actually, but yeah, it's just rubber cement. Okay, and then what we want to do is just carefully move this to one side and let that dry. Right, so while that's drying, we'll go to our notepad cover, and we just need to fold and burnish our score lines. It's quite important to check that that's straight. That. Okay, and then decide, well, not that it matters, but find your front, and I'm going to decorate the front with this DSP, and in fact I think I shall put that inside as well. And so for that we want a piece that is 3 7/8 by 3 3/8, and you're going to want 2 pieces in that size, and then just stick them to your pad. Right, so that's our notepad covered. That's the front and the inside. You can also do this piece here if you want to as well, but because our notepad will be going in there, it covers most of it, so I haven't bothered. So now what we want to do is to adhere this inside our box. In fact, what we'll do first is we'll make our stamp pocket so we know where to position our note paper. So if you grab your little piece where we've scored at 1/8 on each side, and we want to cut out these tiny little squares that are on each corner. Okay, it just helps to fold better. And then carefully fold and burnish those. Okay, and we want to put our piece of DSP on. I'm actually going to do mine in the same design as the notepad, and this size is 2 3/8 by 1 3/4, and it's just this one piece that we need. Okay, and then what we'll do is on the back we just want a tiny spot of glue, so you're better off using a glue that has got a fine tip. We just want a tiny spot of glue on the bottom of each side, and then we just want to fold the bottom piece up. And we'll just use a piece of see, I've got a piece of scrap. Just run that in there just to check that no glue has stuck where we don't want it to. There we go. And what we want to do now, oops, is just position where we want our stamp pocket and our notepad. Might be a good idea at this time to get your stamps, because you want them to be able to fit in and be able to take them out easily. So where I've got them there is probably a good spot actually, and the notepad will, yeah, so it's roughly about 1/8 of an inch in from the side, which should be fine. And our stamp pocket, it's roughly just to the top of that stem there, but I'll double check that again before I stick it. So for the stamp pocket, sorry, the notepad, you just apply glue to the back. And you want to line the back up to the crease line. About 1/8 of an inch from the side, and just lift up. And I find if you lift up and sort of push with your fingers down, see how you've then got the notepads just touching the base here, then you'll know that you're in the right place. Carefully open that up and just check that that's all stuck down nicely. Okay, and that's ready to put our paper in when that's dry. And so with our stamp pocket, we'll put some glue on the back first. Again, we'll use our fine tip, or glue with the fine tip, because of it being such a small area, and we're only applying glue to the 3 sides. And if we get our stamps, sort of put it on top like that, so you know, but roughly there should be fine. You know that you're going to be able to slide them out. Okay, and then try it out with your stamps, and they fit in there nice. So the next part we want to do is fitting our pen. So for this one I'm going to be using a black one, and you should have a piece of scrap from our from when we cut this design. That's what I'm going to use for the pen holder. This piece, as I say, it doesn't need to be exact, is just over 3/8 of an inch. But what we want to do is on one end, in fact we can cut this because it's far too long, and on one end you just want to just freely bend up like that. I've not measured it, but where I've bent it's just over 1/4 of an inch, and then feed that through the lid. I have found that it's best to hold it on with the lid. In fact, this is might work by doing, yeah, it's probably best. It depends on the pen. So when I made this one, because the pen was longer, I found that I had to hold it, sorry, it would help if you could see it, wouldn't it? I found I had to put this where the lid is, because if it was further down there it was sitting too far and then I couldn't bring this up. So this one I did need to put it under the lid to fit. But I think with this other one, because the pen's smaller, we're going to be able to put it on the actual pen itself. That should work. Okay, so once you've put the piece of DSP around your pen, holding it in place at the back, and then you don't want it too tight, but when you've then folded it round, just do a crease with your nail. Okay, so you've got the crease there, and then you can just accentuate that a bit more by bending it. Then cut off the excess. Try it again. Cut a bit off the other end. Okay. Yeah, that's going to fit good there. Move it down that way a bit. So we'll then apply some glue to each of the ends. Okay. Right, and then position that. Checking that it's where you want it, and just hold it for a couple of seconds just to stay in place. Wipe off any excess. Okay, and just hold that there just while it sets. And when you know you've got it the right size, just move the pen out so you can get to it better. Just wipe off any excess glue. Right, so should be nice and stuck down now. So we'll move that to one side while we let that dry, and now we're going to work on our lid. So you should have this piece here, and what we're going to do this time is we're going to cut the score lines on each side up to the first score line only. We're not cutting the whole triangle out, just cut on this side, rotate it and do the same on this side. Okay. Okay, and then you should have something that looks like that. And then what we want to do is just cut diagonally from the centre line here and out to there. So we basically just cut the square in half. We're making little tags like that. Okay, and you want to repeat that on this side. turn it round and do the same again. Okay, so then we got something that looks like that. So we then want to fold our score lines and then burnish them. Remembering to do the tabs as well. Okay, and then we want to turn over and then we're going to decorate our lid. So I'm going to be using this DSP, and obviously this is directional, so I need to make sure when I stick it that I'm putting it on the right way that I want it. So what we need to do first is you want to measure across 6.5 inches, which is this measurement here, and then the depth is 2 inches. So I'm going to measure 6.5 inches and then cut 3 pieces at 2 inches. And then these end pieces are 2-inch square. So 2 inches by 2 inches. Okay, so if you cut those and then stick them onto your lid. Right, so that's all our pieces on. And I made sure that I've got which way I want the direction to go, and so now they should all be the right way up. Okay, so now we need to put our lid together. So first of all we want to put glue on both of our tabs there. And just bring that up. It should fit perfectly. And bring up the other side. Okay, that fits nice. And then do the same on the other side. Okay, and there's our lid, and then just check it all fits. There we go. And so the final step of part 1 is to insert our note paper in the notepad. So check it's dry obviously before doing that. There's mine here. Okay. And we just want to apply some glue to the back and just stick that onto our pad. And up to the crease, checking it's even. And it still closes. There we go, and that will still come up and fit in there nice. Okay, so that's the end of part 1. Sorry it was such a long video, but I hope you'll find it's worth it. So part 2, what I'll do is I'll show you how what cards I made. It's going to be very simple, so yeah, it won't take too long. I'm just going to be using the scraps of the DSP that we've already been using, some stamping maybe. Then I shall make some little note cards to go in here and some little gift tags. So I hope you can join me. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, then I hope you'll do that. And also if you hit the bell icon, you'll also be notified when I upload the next video and any further videos. So thank you very much for watching. Bye.